Welcome back, everybody, to where we're just going to call this episode "This is Fine." This is fine. Before we get into anything, I've got a little sinus thing going on, courtesy of my wife. She brought home a sinus infection last week, and now I am
Oh,
deep
don't
in
worry.
the
Your
throat.
kid's going to go back to school this week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Meaning you should have another cold as soon as next week.
Yeah, which convenient. The thing is so my wife works at a university, and people are starting to come back, and so she got the illness, brought it home to me. And I didn't understand what this meant on the box when I bought it. So I bought some Robitussin, kind of. And on the box, the description literally says a more productive cough.
Ah, I know exactly what that means.
I now know what that means. It means you're going to hack, it's
You're going to cough stuff up.
the stuff that's in the chest needs to come out, which
Is it called expectorating? Is that the term?
that sounds fancy enough for me. And I was like, "Man, what does that mean?"
Expectorate the street?
Yep.
Dig up those rocks? I don't know.
Yeah, so that's I wrote a post and hit publish on Petri, and then we're doing this podcast, which is really dangerous because I'm it's a little foggy. A little foggy.
Hopefully you're not going to spray the camera with anything.
Yeah, if I could give you this through Skype, I would. I'm sure they're working on that feature as we speak.
Right.
But so my health is fine. Other things that are fine, which I cannot even say with a straight face.
Well,
This thing, the Cortana thermostat from Johnson Controls is getting evicted. Cortana's being asked to move
I
out.
gotta look this thing up. But you remember, what's that called? What's the name of this thing? It's GL something.
Yeah, it's the glass thermostat.
Glass. GLAS.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably not going to come up. Yeah, there it is. You know that they had added other assistant support at some point, right? I mean,
Yeah,
maybe that might have been the
little bit.
the hint. I don't know.
I mean,
Sure.
what is this thing? I mean, not what is
What
this
is this
thing? I'm sure this thing is fine or whatever. But
It's a beautiful device.
it is, and
It's a beautiful device, and honestly, in the scheme of smart controls devices, whatever, it's not that expensive.
nope.
Um,
But I mean,
it's it's not that Cortana either, I guess.
yeah. So I mean, it really just kind of if you're holding on to those consumer services that Microsoft is.
Why would anyone be holding on to this? Like the faux outrage on Twitter, for example, yesterday over this topic is seriously. I'm sorry. Did this really come out of the blue? Was there no warning that this, the Cortana stuff wasn't really taken off?
I just, I'm not outraged. I just find it hysterical that they.
Yeah.
Just,
Oh no, I know you're not outraged.
But I mean, it's was it really that much work to keep supporting this? My instinct says that I bet they're turning stuff off on the back end, and that's why they have to do this.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Because think about it, what if they didn't have to maintain anything, if it just worked as is, fine.
Right.
Just don't take the PR hit. But if they have to actually do something on the back end that's going to impact this device, then they have to get Cortana off there, which makes me think that they're doing something back there.
Honestly, I think the impact of this is going to be small.
Oh,
I don't think that too many people bought this thing to use
let's
Cortana.
be clear. The only impact is from jackasses like us just laughing at it. That's it.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, there are people who read our site and watch this podcast who probably are into the whole Microsoft ecosystem thing and might have bought one of these things. But I mean, I just feel like, how many times can one caution others not to do things like buy content from the Microsoft store, like the ebook store, or buy music doesn't matter anymore. That stuff's all free now. But buy movies from Microsoft. Buy into any of this Cortana nonsense. You don't get this with the one smart speaker that was ever made. You don't buy the one thermostat that was ever made. I don't know. I was talking. I don't know if you don't know this guy, I guess, but I was talking to a guy from the Netherlands last week, and he had come up in the world as a Microsoft guy, and he had switched at some point 5-7 years ago to Google, meaning that he's helping companies transition to, or he was helping companies transition to G Suite, especially in the enterprise. He was traveling all over Europe and doing this kind of stuff. And more recently, what he said has happened is that more companies now are kind of hedging their bets with this stuff. Like, you don't really see a lot of companies making a big bet on just one infrastructure provider.
Sure.
And so, a lot of his clients now actually have G Suite and Office 365, and they use them in different ways in different places or whatever it might be. And they're very interested in interoperability. And, what he basically said, which I think is the maturity moment, he's younger than I am and probably a little older than you are, but I think this maturity moment that a lot of people have eventually, especially people who came up in the world as tech enthusiasts is that, this is not religion. It's
Yep.
You need to make decisions that are right for you, not that are vaguely right because you support some company for some reason. Apple fans are kind of famous for this, but Microsoft fans are like this too. I mean, Google fans are out there. Nintendo fans, whatever you want to say. I just, I don't know. I've always tried to help people think realistically about this stuff. Do the things that are best for them. And I don't know. I feel bad for people who
I should
actually
be
are
more
burned by
empathetic,
this.
as my wife would say.
Well, sure. Listen, you would appreciate the fact. My wife was, this is many years ago, I was standing in line at an Apple store, probably to get like OS 10 Tiger or something. It was back in those days. And we're standing in line, and we had to go to a mall to get this software. And my wife is freaking out because it looks like it's like a circus of nerds. And she starts talking to people in the line. She's like, "Why are you here?" And they're like, "Well, to get this software, or whatever." And she goes, "Do you need it tonight? Is it going to solve a problem for you right now?" And they're like, "No." And she's like, "Why can't you just come back tomorrow?" She's like, "Why do you have to have it right now?" And these people are all getting kind of nervous, and they're looking at each other like, no one ever questions this in the Apple line. Like, everyone there knows why they're there. And my wife was like this normal shaft of light, coming in to the darkness. And that's the world. That's the tech enthusiast world.
Paul, you can be honest with us. That was actually a Call of Duty launch, wasn't it?
No, I went to those with my son. I used to wake him up, this, like at midnight, and we'd drive out to Best Buy and get the latest game.
I haven't done that recently because of digital downloads. Now you just pre-buy it and then you wake up and it's there. But
the last
I remember
couple were
Halo days
a little lamer.
Yeah.
I would, after the store thing was no longer necessary, starting with the Xbox 10, I got Xbox One, Xbox 10. I would, I'd get it digitally. So I would still wake him up at midnight. We'd play video games for 2 hours or whatever. It wasn't quite the same, but.
The real mean thing was I was actually at a school night and Paul was just like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to keep playing.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, man, my kids start school tomorrow. We had new
It's crazy early to me. That just seems so early.
Yeah, but she also gets out like June 1st. So it's
yeah.
First grade starting tomorrow. My wife is like all in tears and I'm like, this is great.
First grade. Jeez.
Yeah.
My daughter is starting the 12th grade tomorrow. Not tomorrow. About 10 days. 2 weeks. 10 days.
Be here before you know it.
Yeah. By the way, yeah. Yes, it will. That's exactly what happens.
You know what else will be here before you know it? January, 14th, 2020, when Windows 7 reaches end of life.
This smells like a segue.
It does. It's a perfect segue. So I got an email from Microsoft yesterday, and this one made no sense to me. They said, hey, we're launching a new Windows 10 deployment assistance FastTrack program. I'm like, wow, that's...
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Okay, fine. This is what, at a high level, if you're buying 150 licenses or more to Windows 10, they will hook you up with a Microsoft person who will help you walk you through all that process. Great. No problem with that. I think and it's not going to cost you any extra money. Fantastic. Why now? Like, why wasn't this available, I don't know, 4 years ago when Windows 10 launched? Like, why
well,
not?
I suppose you could argue that in the past you didn't need to fast track it.
Yeah.
I know fast track is like a service name. It's not just a general term, but using it as a general term, I mean, now you do, if you haven't done it yet, maybe you do need to fast track it.
Yeah. And well,
what are we talking? 4 or 5 months until?
Yeah, January? Like 5.5 months, something like that.
Yeah.
So you don't have much time. And
here's an idea: just buy new computers. You're not going to want to.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to upgrade.
Yeah. Just toss that in your little capital expense bucket.
The nice thing I will say, once Windows 7 is gone, the nice thing from sort of a Windows deployment perspective, and this is true for businesses as well as individuals, is we will never have to deal with this again. Now, it's
you
fair
heard
to
it here first, folks. Please, when we do have to deal with it again, because Microsoft will find a way.
I mean, in the sense, look, so it is an interesting thing going back because of this programming Windows series I've been doing. I've been installing lots of old versions of Windows and VMs and playing around with them and so forth. It's very interesting how little the process for applying Windows to a disk has changed over the years. Yeah. And I mean, back to the mid 1990s, it really isn't that different. And that's true even of the 9X versions of Windows. Like, it really isn't that different. But one of the more horrible things you can do is go from one major Windows version to another, and today that means Windows 7 to Windows 10. And so in the course of updating the Windows 10 book I have, every time I update the install chapter, I have to go back and create a version of Windows 7 in a VM. I install applications to it. I customize it so it's just a certain way. Make sure it's completely up to date, of course, which is a nightmare. And then I upgrade it. And speaking as an individual, this isn't really so much from a business perspective, but like the things that come forward and the things that you lose in that kind of an upgrade are really kind of hard to quantify. I don't feel that it's very well documented or understood or whatever. At least with Windows 10, you could make the argument that the recovery tools have gotten a lot more sophisticated. You could today go in, you could do like a refresh thing where it blows away Windows, installs the latest version, but keeps all your data and your, the modern store apps. And it's fairly non-destructive and works pretty well. Or you could do a reset or whatever, or you could do a version upgrade where you go from like 1809 to 1903, whatever. Those, it's what's going on behind the scenes is still pretty traumatic, I guess, to the system. But as far as you're concerned, to the user, it works pretty well. Like Windows 7 to Windows 10 is going to be the last nightmare upgrade for the foreseeable future.
That we hope.
Yeah, I mean, obviously things could change, but I mean, as long as Windows 10 is Windows 10, like if you went back today, for example, and you installed the very first Windows 10 version, it would be, the settings app would be kind of goofy, simplistic looking, but it's the same. It's the same thing. It wouldn't be a jarring change.
I do agree. And if Microsoft does change anything, you can blame Paul. That is Paul.
Well, of course they could, but I don't think you don't think they're going to, right? I mean,
I don't know.
On PCs, there'll be another thing. There'll be like this Light OS thing or whatever, and that will be fun because it will be different and whatever. But
you're
as
not
far as like classic,
no,
you're not going to upgrade to it. And as far as Windows 10 goes, I mean, barring any unforeseen circumstances, I don't see it changing.
Yeah, well. Time will tell.
A person wearing a turban in my living room. Oh, it's my daughter. She must have washed her hair. Or she's joined some kind of a cult I'm unaware of.
Well, she is starting school soon.
That's right.
That's right. That time. Oh, what else is going on? Oh, we fixed everybody who is very concerned about the inodes issue yesterday. That has been resolved. We can thank Mr. Harrison for.
So yes, we should. Right. What do we know about this?
So he cleared out some backlogs of old app cache, theme caching, just some logs and other things that kind of got a little squirrely. They have now been contained and wrangled, and we have a bunch of new inodes that are now available for processing.
Love me those inodes.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you saw the little thread in there in the forums about this, because there were a couple of people who were saying like they had seen this maybe earlier than we had. But I was on the site that morning. I guess this was yesterday. It seems like it was a million years ago. But I was commenting and that stuff was working. I knew when I got up that the posting wasn't working. I had posted over the weekend, but noticed some performance issues. I couldn't post pictures yesterday at first. But some people were saying they'd experienced this earlier, and probably from Europe. And I would imagine because of the way these things are distributed, like who knows how that works. But I feel like we were on this pretty quick because someone else had posted something in the forums about not being able to comment.
Yep.
And I'm kind of on that stuff, and I feel like I saw that within an hour, and I checked it, and sure enough, I couldn't comment, and I forwarded it to you or Harrison. I don't know how I did it, but anyway, I feel like we got on it as well as we could, especially given that we had no idea at first, especially what was causing this,
Yep. Yeah. And then once we figured it's just like any other triage, right? You try to figure out what's causing the problem. Then once you figure out what's causing the problem, then we found a very, very short-term fix, which allowed us to get some posts out and whatnot. And then once Harrison was able to actually sit down and architect a new solution, then it was resolved within like an hour or so. And it's realistically just running some scripts more frequently than we had been, and just clearing out some old stuff. So it should be good for a while, or hopefully forever.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the spam problems we had. It's like, kind of hope we're just done with that.
Yeah. Knock on wood. Spam's been all right, and
for the most part. Yep.
Yeah.
So not like the deluge we had. That one time. I guess 2 times.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't like to think about those days.
You got anything else for today, Mr. Powell the Rat?
No, I guess not. How about you?
No, I've got my last day at home with the kiddo because there's no summer camps going on anymore. And
do you think anywhere in the world there are people like right now disconnecting their glass thermostats from the walls and just crying? Well, they play sad music in the background, and
I bet there's probably one. One, because I would say nobody's really.
I would be using one right now. The problem is my house has electric heat, and so all this thing would be able to do is control the AC for one floor of the house, and so I'd have to get 2 of them, and all I could do is AC. And honestly, what's the point? It's too bad. Like, I really wish we didn't have this system, but we do. And if we didn't, I would almost certainly be using that thing right now.
Yeah. I could be using it, but I have a Nest and I quite like it. And
Yeah, sure. Oh, you mean there was a popular solution that other people were using with a digital assistant that is actually broadly used out in the world? That's interesting.
Well, the thing is like the Nest doesn't really even use the Google one.
The assistant.
Like it's its own sort of, which I expect is probably going to change. I mean, obviously you can use the assistant, control it and all that stuff, but I just use the app, and it's like, realistically, once your thermostat is set up correctly, like we hardly touch it. We have it set up to...
You don't like defrag it or anything, or sit there and screw around with it.
Yeah. So my daughter didn't even know. Oh, this is a good story. So yesterday I went out to lunch with my daughter because, again, she's home. And we went to the ATM, and it just never occurred to me that she still doesn't really understand how the world works.
Right.
And so we go to the ATM, and you do your thing, and the money comes out, and she's like, "Dad, that thing just gives you dollars?" Like, she's like, "What code do I punch in to get dollars out of it?" You just assume that machine, you just drive up and it just dispenses unlimited dollars. It was great.
I have a nephew who's like, we refer to as an evil genius. He's like going to be the villain in a Bond movie eventually. Like, even when he was a baby, he was like super smart, but in like a really devious way. And so one time he was staying at my parents' house, and I don't know if it was my mother, somebody went to go print from the printer, and it was all jammed up. And so they couldn't figure it out. So I came over, they asked me to come over and look at it. And so I opened up the printer, and there was like a $20 bill jammed, like crinkled up and all jammed up inside of it. It took forever to get it out of there. And I was like, why on earth is there a $20 bill inside the printer? And it was because my nephew was trying to make copies of the money so he could have more money. He like took $20 from one of my parents and then tried to duplicate it in the printer. It's good stuff.
I'm assuming that you just took that $20 out and put it into your own pocket.
Well, that was the payment for coming over.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I actually used it at Dunkin' Donuts, and then I sent them a photo of it. You would appreciate that story.
Such a jerk. All right, folks, that wraps it up for today. We'll catch all of you right back here tomorrow.